Play a game. Which of these is one of the top 10 factors that influence student success according to research? Socioeconomic status, effort, student-teacher relationships, positive peer relationships, or none of the above? If you answer none of the above, you are correct. There's a little-known key to education that should be on everyone's radar, but that isn't. Stay tuned to the end of the video to learn all about this powerful secret. So most people aren't aware that there is an index of scientifically proven influences in education. And this was done by Dr. John Hattie. It's called the Hattie Index. This provides a comprehensive list of factors that significantly impact education for students. And what he found was that actually what is called collective efficacy was the most important factor or influence in education and how well students learn. Now, what is collective efficacy? So collective efficacy, as it's used in this context, is how teachers think that they can work together to influence student success. So in other words, teachers have the beliefs that their students can succeed and that they can help them to reach high levels of achievement. Now, all those other things that we talked about, socioeconomic status, effort, those are all in Hattie's index, but they are not at the very top. The top one is this collective efficacy. So the main work done on collective efficacy was done by Donahue. And what they found was that there are certain enabling conditions. So enabling conditions are conditions that help teachers to have this collective efficacy, to believe that they can really help students and that students can succeed. And these are things like optimism, belief in students as capable learners, belief in a supportive community, supportive leadership, and values of diversity and inclusion. Now, the problem I see is that school conditions and practices today often go against these principles. They're often what you might call disabling conditions. They are totally against this principle of collective efficacy. Now, what do I mean by that? So there's a wide belief in schools today and in the public at large that things like socioeconomic status, disabilities, English language learners, that these children can't learn. There's a very negative attitude towards many children who don't fit the stereotypical white middle class norm. And things that the schools do, such as tracking data, just even collecting information. Every school you have to collect socioeconomic status, and that goes for data, and that's for a good reason. But all of these things can contribute to this belief that the children can't learn. Children now have this label that they are disabled, they're English learners, they have low socioeconomic status. And very easily, there becomes this belief that these students just can't learn. And that belief is reinforced by the media, it's reinforced by society, even entertainment. And then, of course, school safety is a huge, huge disruption. If your students are scared all the time, they're scared about fights, they're scared about weapons, there's constant disruptions with drills, and sometimes lockdown. Are teachers going to believe that in that environment they can really reach students? Of course not. Chronic absenteeism is a big factor. So nationwide, 23% of students don't go to school on a regular basis. And then there's things that the schools themselves do, like constant testing. Here in South Carolina, there's been a lot of talk because students are now getting tested several times every 9 weeks, and it goes towards their grades, and there's a lot of stress involved with that. And if teachers are spending all their time testing and not teaching, there's going to become this belief that these students can't be reached, that you can't be effective with these students, because it is a lot harder when all your time's being taken up with testing, and when perhaps the student behavior problems are worse because students are so unmotivated by these tests. They have so many problems with them. There are behavior issues now, and that's not the teacher's fault. Those are problems that come with society and come with parenting. But when we don't have systems in place in schools to address these behavior systems, or the systems don't work, when there's not enough resources, then teachers are going to feel like they can't reach students. There's one-size-fits-all instruction. This does not allow for differentiation student needs. So if you're told that you have to use a script to teach, and every child has to learn the same way, that's not going to reach all children. It's just not. And so if you have this very rigid curriculum and you can't do what you need to do to reach children who maybe are at different points in learning, or have special things going on, have special needs, or have English learners, then you're not going to believe you can't reach them, because honestly you can't. So that's going to hurt collective efficacy. And now we're limited because of book and curriculum restrictions. That's a huge thing in South Carolina. You can't even give a child a book necessarily that the child wants to read. because everything's so restricted because of concerns about DEI, about diversity, education, equity, and inclusion, concerns about language and sexuality in text. You can't do that. So teachers are going to feel like they can't do a whole lot because honestly they can't. That's how it is. There's lack of teacher training about working with students who maybe are different, who have disabilities, or who are English learners, or are from diverse families. So we still have a primarily white, middle-class female teacher force. There's very little diversity among teachers, and teacher training programs are doing very little to either recruit teachers who are diverse or to just provide training. And again, because of government mandates and things, that's a lot of the training that was provided is going away. So we've got all these things, and these problems are only increasing in schools. Every year it's getting worse for teachers. So we need this huge shift in societal and school priorities for this to change. Will it? I don't know. So let's give an example of two schools. Let's call this a tale of two schools. They both are in trouble. They have low test scores. They have high levels of students living in poverty. They have high levels of special education students. They have relatively high levels of diversity, a relatively high level of English learners, and they're facing challenges. And the school board and the school and the principal have all asked teachers to help to turn this around. So let's look at School A. Has a very supportive school system that provides resources to help teachers with professional development, provides an instructional coach. It provides meaningful collaboration where teachers can work together and to fix their goals. The school system is also allowing some innovative differentiation. It's encouraging differentiation for levels, both in process, what the student reads, what the student learn, how the student can learn the material, and also in product, what the student produces. So students get choices about how they show what they've learned. They also implement a very thorough response to intervention program, which is whole school. Everyone has a group that either does intervention or enrichment in reading or math, depending on what the student needs. And even the school nurse has a group, and the PE teacher. They all have groups of students that they work with on a small group basis, and everything is very positive, and everything is teacher-led. So teams of teachers work together to plan, and everything is based on research, effective practices. And then there's School B. So School B is a school within a large district where everything has to be done the same way. Everything is judged. The school leaders and the district leaders are required to look at teacher lesson plans and make sure they're on the right page at the right time. They're following the pacing guide. There's no room for differentiation. Students who are English learners or who have special educational needs, the only thing that they get are accommodations, which basically just makes the test easier. They aren't reading at their level. They aren't getting assessments and assignments that they are able to do, and that helps them to grow at their level and target things that they need to work on. And largely for those students, they're just passed on because they don't get what they need. So if a student has a failing grade because they don't understand how to do something, they just are passed on. And that is what the teachers have been told to do. And the teachers can't even have classroom libraries because there's so much concern about content and what books students can read and following procedures and policies at school. This particular school does not have any kind of an intervention program. The only thing they have are resource classes for special education and special classes for English learners. But that's just a small part of the day, and it's not connected to their other classes. The only real discipline they have is where a positive behavior support system where they can get tickets, and those tickets are turned in for things like candy and pencils and stickers, and the students are bribed, and the students expect a ticket for every little thing. They expect a ticket for sitting down and doing their work. It's very difficult, and there's so many behavior problems that the staff can't get to them in time. The administration, they can't get to all the discipline problems because there's just so many at the school. There's a lot of fights, there's a lot of problems. There's been several lockdowns this year, and there's also a lot of infighting within the school. So one team of teachers blames the other team of teachers for the problems, or they blame the grade before them that they did not prepare the students well enough. There's a lot of infighting within teachers. The school has really high turnover because of all these stressors. Which school do you think did better, their test scores? If you said school A, you're right. So school A increased their reading test scores by 2 times. In other words, students did twice as well in the next year as they did in the year before. Even more impressive is that they had no students who were below basic. In other words, all students had some level of understanding of the content. Huge accomplishment. That school actually became a blue ribbon school, which is an award that the federal government gives, or used to give, to celebrate schools who show mass improvement, especially schools that are in communities that don't have a lot of resources, that have high levels of poverty. School B is still struggling. In fact, School B is going downhill. School B has had multiple problems this year. They've been in the news several times because of weapons incidences because of fight. And several people at that school, several parents are trying to turn things around, but they have to go to the Board of Education to do that. And the Board of Education is largely not supportive. They believe that the way to improve schools are these high stress accountability measures, are these constant testing, are these one size fits all policies. So schools have choices, and school systems have choices, and states have choices. These are lots of different people go into making these decisions about what schools are going to be like. So it seems to me almost hopeless that this will be implemented on a large scale in the United States, that these enabling conditions will be used so that collective efficacy takes place across the United States. But change is possible, and it needs to start on a local level. But for this to really work, it will take a total shift in how we think about our students, teachers, and education. And it needs to start with a conversation that we're not having. This is very rarely talked about. So did this surprise you? And where do you see collective efficacy working or not working in your schools? Please comment below. And next time, I'm going to continue talking about another type of efficacy that affects learning. So stay tuned for that. And please like and subscribe for more information about education. And until next time, keep learning.